All right, all good.
Okay, good evening. It's 7:02. I want to welcome everybody to the Board of Selectmen meeting. We have in attendance with us tonight the Troop 5 from Milton, and they came in for a good solid hour and to learn about Town Hall and how government works. I'm sorry, it's Pack 5, pardon me. Pack 5 from the Webelos. And so I wanted to just give a little shout out to them and thank them for the time of coming in and meeting with Selectman Wells and Town Administrator Dennehy and talking about what goes on here at Town Hall and how they can help make a difference in their neighborhood and in their community. So thanks for coming in. Before we get to any business, some sad news. Festus Joyce, longtime elected member of the school committee for Blue Hills Regional Technical School and a long-time town meeting member, as well as the father of our town clerk, Susan Galvin, passed away this week. Along with more unfortunate news, Herb Voigt, who was a library trustee, a longtime town meeting member, and past president of both the Milton Library Foundation and the Milton Foundation for Education. So before we start, I'd like to take a moment of silence and pay respects to them. Thank you. We're going to miss both of them. Both have made big contributions to the town in various capacities, and you know, it's going to be tough to replace both of them in what they have done for us.
Absolutely, I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay, so first order of business is to review and approve minutes. We have a motion before us.
I move that we approve the meeting minutes of November 13th, 2017, November 27th, 2017, December 12th, 2017, and January 9th, 2018.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, our future meeting dates, the board will meet on February 13th and February 27th. We'll also be conducting a joint meeting with the planning board, which is set for February 7th, and that will be at the Council on Aging, and that's set for 7 p.m. The Council on Aging. Our March dates would be March 12th and March 26th, but we will confirm with Emily, each of us, to make sure that those are in order. Item number 4 on our agenda is citizen speak. Do we have anybody tonight that'd like to come up and speak? Good evening, Phil.
Good evening. I'm Phil Johanning, 23 Parkwood Drive. I talked about my warrant article last Board of Selectmen's meeting, and I was a little afraid that in Katie's shortening of the intent, that maybe it's misunderstood. And what the warrant article is a moratorium on zoning changes until such time as the town looks at zoning in a comprehensive manner. You know, there was an interesting article, maybe all of you saw it, East Milton Development Sparks Concerns. I thought it was a very interesting and well-written letter to the editor. And some of the things that he brings up relative to East Milton apply to the town, in my opinion, in general. He's saying, why should we look at projects in East Milton Square individually? Why should we spend excessive amounts of time putting regulations property by property when, in fact, it makes more sense to look at East Milton Square in a comprehensive way? And I think that makes sense for East Milton, and I think it makes sense for the town. For the town to use the master plan that was developed at great expense as a roadmap for rezoning. The zoning bylaws of the town are 80 years old, and what happens is that we're constantly putting patches on them, And we're spending excessive amounts of time, I think, at town meeting, at the Board of Selectmen, at the Planning Board, working out conditions, project by project, and creating enemies among neighbors. Projects like the Ice House, projects like these projects on Adams Street in East Milton, projects like the Temple. When I first moved here, people were fighting over the Temple. And certain people still remember how other people voted, and they evaluate them in that manner. It seems sad that we would create unpleasantness between neighbors over zoning projects when the zoning should be clear and everyone should know what to expect in their neighborhood when they move into it. Another concern of mine is the failure of the building inspector to uphold the terms of special permits. And I say that in general because I recently went to a Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, and I had some concerns about a special permit and compliance with the special permit. And the building inspector said that he did not have the resources to enforce the terms of all the special permits. And I pointed out to him myself that we recently hired a zoning compliance officer. So I think the resource is there, but still, I'm not getting enforcement. The law requires that if I make a complaint, the building commissioner has to respond within 14 days in writing, and he didn't do that. The Zoning Board of Appeals ordered him to respond within 30 days, and we're more than halfway there, and I still haven't gotten a response. So, I'm a patient man. I'll wait the 30 days, and I'll give him another 15 on top of that. But we shouldn't have to be fighting for enforcement of special permits. I was just at the planning board meeting, and they talked about the Beechwood Lane project right off Brush Hill Road, and they talked about the failure of the developer to protect the beech tree, which subsequently died. One of the neighbors took photographs of dumpsters on top of the roots of the beech tree, and they talked about the fact that the road was not in compliance with the special permit. So, all of these things occur when special conditions are made outside of regular zoning, and they put additional burden on the town because the town has to be familiar with the special permit and then must enforce. So I think all of these special zoning situations that are being created are causing a problem with enforcement, with resources, and I think it's not the way the town should be spending its time and money. And I mentioned conflict among neighbors, and I think that's probably the most serious problem that's caused by these zoning exceptions. Alex Whiteside said at the planning board meeting the other night that the zoning bylaws are not being rewritten with these constant changes. They're being perfected. I would think that if something is being perfected, it wouldn't take all these special town meetings, all these planning board hours. I would think that wouldn't be necessary if the zoning ordinance or zoning bylaws really fit the needs of the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else here for citizen speak? Okay, seeing that we don't have any, we're going to now get into a conference with Christine Hodlin, who is a library trustee, along with John Folcarelli, as well, another trustee, to discuss potential uses for the Kidder Library branch. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for putting us first on the agenda, too. I appreciate that. So I just really want to just give you a couple updates, really what we've been doing November, December, January, and let you know where we are as far as open, what's still open that we have left to kind of go forward with our strategic vision. So, and I've had conversations, I think, individually with most of you. But in November, we had an open forum at the library. We had over 45 people attend, which was great. Unfortunately, that was your selectmen's meeting night, so none of you were able to attend, but it was well attended, and I think we got a lot of good questions. The intent of that meeting was really just to update the public with what we were doing and what our process was, and I feel like that, that has happened. Also, we've met with the Master Plan Committee, met with Regina Malley, one of the park commissioners, April Lamro, who the planning board has assigned as kind of a planning board member specifically for us if we have any needs, just so we have somebody to reach out to. I've met with the school department, superintendent, and also the school committee. In December, we had a couple tours, and just, one early in December and one later. And at that time, we had a couple of you. I know Mike was here and Richard came over. Again, also one of the park commissioners came over, Milton Access TV. We had the Milton Food Pantry, 3 people from the Milton Food Pantry. And all those people were there, I think, with intent to, because they had expressed some interest in the building and somehow, whether it be renting or purchasing the building. So we were just trying to open it up specifically for people to look at the building. At the planning board, also I should say at the master planning board meeting that I attended, there was a gentleman there from the state who offered the Mass Development Group, which would provide some help to us. So we've reached out to them and we've submitted an application to them on behalf of the board. And what that would do is if and when it happens, the application was submitted and they could actually help us in looking at possible uses for the building, do some technical or architectural designs, and help to put together the RFP. We're not naive in that may take 6 months, and we may be beyond that by the time that happens. But anyways, we're just looking at all options that we might have out there to help us in this process. In January, we had a couple of realtors from Coldwell Banker looked at the building in December, and they're beginning a market analysis of the building. So I think one of the things that I want to correct, I think in one of the previous presentations that we had, we talked about the kind of deteriorating and horrendous shape of the building, and I think that was somewhat corrected. The building itself is in very good shape. There's a school that's operating there right now, and it's up to code and running. And I think we're looking at more longer-term capital needs that the library themselves have to fund, because the current tenant, the rent that we receive from that doesn't fully cover that. It covers a lot of the day-to-day and regular stuff, but it's becoming increasingly, larger as we go forward. So we don't have a final market analysis, but it was reviewed with many other properties of the same, the same likeness to that one, and looks like a very good property that would be of interest to many investors to purchase. So that we've made a decision on the board to approve going ahead with appraisals. So the funding for that has been allocated, and I'm in the process of trying to get that to happen, looking for a couple of appraisers to come in on the building. This past Saturday, we had an open house, so we tried to open up the building again, tried to reach out to as many people as we could, and we had 12 people come, which, may not seem like a lot, but a couple years ago, we had one person come to some of the meetings, so we were encouraged by the different group. There were some neighbors, some elected people, different group of people that showed up. So I guess at this point, just with some of the options for the building and people that were of interest, right now Milton Access TV has said they have no more interest in the building. The schools has also said that right now the building wouldn't meet the needs that they have, so they have no interest at this point. And the food pantry as well. So they had a board meeting the beginning of January and had also determined that they're going to stay with the Parkway for now and try to work things out with them. So still open open is some interest for, housing development. So Tom Callahan from the Affordable Housing Group was there on Saturday to look at the building, and I know they're meeting, you guys are meeting this week, so that's one of the options that's still open. And also there's some interest in a private group of citizens that are having a meeting at the building this week on a teen center. So I don't think they know exactly if this is a building for them or what they want, but it's kind of the beginning of their organization of maybe to try to determine what do they need and where can they get it and how do they make it going. So not sure the timing will work, but they're just also another group, that I think you're all aware of, are looking for a place or for some magic to happen, I guess, to fund a teen center. The Discovery Schoolhouse themselves is very interested. They don't want to leave the building, but they don't have the wherewithal to purchase the building, and not sure if even rental increases would really be viable for them, but, we'll be talking to them further. So I've had a couple people mention Milton Hospital. I have reached out to them several times and haven't heard if they're going to come and actually look at the building. That would be a more commercial, probably office space. Currently, the property's zoned residential, and the trustees don't have any intentions right now of trying to switch that, but we're just, pursuing people that might be interested in the building at all. So kind of that's really where we are right now. So the appraisals will be the next step that we have. I have been in contact with John Flynn, and I'm hoping this week to get some answers to several questions that I have in regards to the process for where we go next. If we do decide to sell, what does that mean, and how does that process go through town meeting, and what's needed, and, before we start any of that process. So hoping to get back to him, or hoping he's going to be getting back to me this week on that. And then really the next open decision we have is the decision by the trustees. So, which, we are looking to try to have that done sooner rather than later. There's a current tenant in there, and the lease expires there in November. So, it's difficult for Discovery Schoolhouse to continue to get new students if they're kind of up in the air with what's going on, and we want to be respectful of them as well. And we would need to give them a notice of what's going to happen. So whether they extend through the next year's school year, or we do a year-to-year lease, or they leave early, or whatever, we don't know. But so the timing of that is critical. So I know we just found out that the warrant was closed early, so I guess when and if the next town meeting is, we'd like to make sure that we have an opportunity to kind of know when that is. I know there was a talk of maybe June. It's usually a fall one, but sometimes that's been canceled. So I guess just as much notice as we can have, so we'd be prepared if we did need to submit an article, to that town meeting.
Great. First of all, thank you for the updates. It's good for people, I think, out watching the TV right now to get an understanding of where you guys are on this. I think it's exciting also that you've mentioned that there are groups interested, in several groups, one being for a potential teen center. Whether or not that makes the right fit or not, location-wise, who knows? But it's been apparent to me, especially with what we're fighting across the state and the country with the opioid crisis and everything that's going on, that middle school age kids need a place to go, okay? And high school age kids, they need a place to socialize. They need a place where there's programs and activities for them to be engaged. So I'm hopeful that the group would be interested in that. If not, we're going to keep plugging away. We want to be a resource here as a board, I know that, to support groups that are looking to go in that direction. There's no question. And also the affordable side. We're looking to make strides here in town on affordable housing, and so that's encouraging to see as well. But thank you for the update, and if my colleagues have some comments as well, I'd invite them to.
I went to the open house on Saturday, so the building is structurally sound. There's just a lot of capital improvements that are needed, so it certainly needs a lot of renovation. But I think those are two potential positive options that would address definite needs in the town. And it's a question of how could either one of them be structured, funded. There's a lot of questions that would have to be considered, obviously.
I mean, the essential issue for the trustees is that we are just currently landlords of this property that don't serve the mission of the library at all at this point. And, we have have to decide what to do. I mean, currently, we're essentially subsidizing this preschool there, which isn't, if we're bringing in extra revenue, we could at least justify that for purposes of use at the library. But right now, it's just, a lose-lose proposition, and we need to decide what to do going forward. So that's, that's where we are. And we have an interest in all of these things, but from our point of view, we just have to decide what to do with this building and how it can best serve the library's mission. So, and that's the direction that we're headed in.
Well, I think the good news is you have gotten word out there, and you're getting people to come in and check it out, and I think there is going to be a fit for someone, I'm pretty sure.
When Michael and I toured it, I went in there and the thought, my first thought going there was, would this make it as a teen center? And you're correct, and it's obvious from the tenant that the capital projects you're facing, his rent isn't going to meet that. And you're correct, you're absolutely not meeting the mission of what your mission is there at the library at this time. Although from the affordable housing, Tom Callahan and especially Kathleen O'Donnell, they really had some great insight as to how you could just put out RFIs. Now, you don't have to put out an RFP, put an RFI and see what you get that could kind of give you some real vision as to what that could be. I wish from a teen center perspective it could be that easy, but from an affordable housing, and to be honest, at this board, we're constantly dealing with developers that want to come in with these massive, and something that's 6 or 8 units as affordables would really be a win-win for the community. It really could be. So I'm glad that Tom was, I knew Tom from the time first Tom heard it. He and Kathleen especially I could just tell that this was something that was, they had some vision right away just knowing. So I see where you're at, and hopefully we can get something really good for the town going forward and make it a little easier for you as well, and something that's good for our residents in the towns.
Do you have a sense of timing on the appraisals?
24 hours.
Or in a few weeks, maybe?
It's really hard to find an appraiser. I have called many, so
To come in and do one.
they're not interested in doing it. I had one tell me this was too big and too complex. I'm like, well, we pay you for this, but I'm not really sure what it is, so haven't had a lot of good response.
Okay.
So I'm waiting for 2 appraisers this week that I got a hold of. I've gotten a couple names, so, several names. People don't call back, they're not interested, so I didn't think this was such a hard thing. I thought this would be the easy part, but it's not. So as soon as we get them, we're actually interested in getting that, because if we need to craft a warrant article, if we decide to sell the building, kind of a minimum sale amount would need to be in there. So we need an appraiser as part of the whole process. That's part of the state process that we'd have to do to sell the building, so.
Town council may be able to help you get an appraiser, too. If you still have trouble after the next 2 who don't want to do it, he may be able to help make some referrals.
Yeah.
Even Bill Conkle, Lauren might be able to help you with one.
Bill,
In the planning office, they might be able to help you finding an appraiser, help you with
a
that.
couple more people then.
Yeah, I'm not sure when the warrant would close for June. We haven't even really
No
had
date yet, right?
We haven't,
far into whether we'd even be having it. But the planning board has talked about zoning for the Falcone project, so it would be for that. But probably want to have it before school closes to make sure there'd be a quorum of town meeting members. So probably at least by mid-June.
Yeah. Okay,
But we can keep you updated on the timing on that.
we certainly will.
that'd be great, yeah.
Thanks
Thank
for
you very
everything.
much.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah,
I know it's long.
thanks for all the hard work you're putting into this. We appreciate it. Nice to see you, John. Nice to see you,
Hello,
Christine.
Chris.
Thank you.
Have fun tonight.
Okay, we're going to move to item number 11. We have Chase Berkeley, our DPW Director and Chair of the Traffic Commission, who's going to come in and give us some updates. Good evening, Chase.
Hey, everybody.
Welcome to the toughest job in town.
Yep.
So this change has been made. The chairmanship has changed from the police chief to the DPW director.
Yes, yeah, and the town meeting article was approved by the AG's office, so we're good there. So we actually held what I'll call a special traffic commission meeting a couple weeks ago just to discuss the change from Chief King to me and a couple of the changes, including adding Emily as the secretary. And one thing we still need to address is there's 2 vacant seats to be filled by residents of the town. So that's kind of the only thing hanging out there from the changes. And then the other part of that special meeting was to discuss and give due time to the fundamental speed limit implementation. So we met on that issue and basically recommended what the state recommends, is to opt in to the law by posting at the jurisdictional boundaries in the town, as opposed to identifying individual streets and having to post a thickly settled sign on each street at the upstream end. So you kind of, it would create a lot of need for signage by doing it on a street-by-street basis. Of the 25-plus communities that have opted in, only 3 of them have chosen the street-by-street basis. The rest opt in on a citywide or townwide basis. So that was our recommendation for the implementation. And just a couple notes on that. So if there's a posted speed limit on a town road, the speed limit will not change. This is only applying to those streets that are defined as a thickly settled area, so the spacing of the houses is 200 feet or shorter, and or business district. If there's a posted speed limit sign on the street, it will stay that way unless the board and your board takes up a change to that. So.
Okay, and if I may, Chase, on that, and thank you for that update, I just want to add into the record that we received a note today from Peter Dunn, who's the chair of the traffic committee for the East Milton Neighborhood Association, that he was fully in support, the East Milton Neighborhood Association, in this implementation, and appreciated the direction that we were all going. So,
great. Yeah, I think it's a very positive tool to help encourage people to slow down, right? And that's the whole goal there, is to bring that speed down and help with safety. So
I just have one question. So in addition to, like, the 28th, what about the side streets that cut in from, like, Quincy, the Plymouth Ave, Governors, Franklin, Alvin? We are coming into town from another community there. Are we going to post there as well? At least post 25-mile-an-hour signs there.
yeah, so we did an inventory, and
Okay.
that number is around 30-plus locations if
okay.
we were to pick every single boundary of the town. I'd like to take a little deeper dive into where that makes the most sense. Obviously, anywhere where you see a Welcome to Milton sign, I think there should be that sign indicating the townwide speed limit. But there are a lot of strange streets, like Victory Ave, for one, where it's just a little piece of it, and it might not make financial sense because we're really not encouraging anybody. There's no pass-through traffic on those streets.
It's a dead end, right?
So you will be looking, though, that was a great example, and I don't want to single out any other neighbor, but Governor's Road is a prime example of people who come through Quincy, and even Waze will get you through there quicker. Even if you're not from town and you want to move through and get to another part, whether it be Boston or wherever, from there, coming from Quincy. So, but you guys will look into that.
Yes,
Great.
that will be part of the implementation, for sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
How long do you think it'll take you to do this?
So the purchase and the manufacture of the signs is relatively quick, and I think the inventory will be quick. So I would say, definitely by springtime, I'd expect it to be out there, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good.
And so we had a second meeting, kind of back-to-back, and just took up some of the rest of what I'll call the local issues that were brought to us by residents on a more individual basis. So there's a few recommendations in there. 2 of them are stop signs, which were brought to us by the neighborhoods that they're in. I'll just highlight Plymouth Ave. We just approved one at the previous Traffic Commission for Grafton, and basically Plymouth and Grafton are mirror streets. They have the same setup, so it was just doing the same thing we did on Grafton at Plymouth. It's just an implied stop where it makes sense. And then the other recommendation from that meeting is posting a time restriction on Highland Street at Unquity. We finally got our feedback from DCR. The Hillside Neighborhood Association has been working for quite some time on trying to address cut-through traffic in their neighborhood. We got some feedback from DCR, so we were able to take a vote on that time restriction, which the committee did vote to support it. A couple caveats there, though. There is some talk about redesign of that intersection as mitigation as part of the development up the road. So we want to make sure we implement that restriction with the new design in mind, and it may even need to be adjusted when the intersection's rebuilt. And there's also 3 homes up there that we want to make sure we don't restrict any access to their driveways in any way, so that they have full access to their house. They come right off of that.
3 homes right by the dam. They go up to the,
Exactly.
They go up to the left, right?
So,
Okay, and then there was one more, I think Walnut Street, the stop sign on Walnut Street.
Yeah, so Walnut at Reedsdale was brought to us by the neighborhood, and there was an accident there also. Child was hit, okay, thankfully, but when looking at it again, it's an implied stop as it is, so it certainly warrants a sign there. And we also did some striping work there to kind of call more attention to it, because
Which I know the neighbors were very thankful for, but it is a place where people do glide through,
Right.
To make a turn.
Right.
So-
What we did see when we looked at that is a peak in volume, particularly in the morning when there's a lot of people that drop their children off at the Pierce and then come up from Fairbanks to Walnut and then go down to Reedsdale. So it'll help, call attention to that crossing.
Chase, in connection with the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, there's a companion to that for certain zones, school, park areas, senior citizen dwellings, for 20 mile per hour. And we haven't yet brought that one to town meeting, but has the Traffic Commission at the last two meetings had any talk about that, or is that something you're going to be taking up at a later date?
It hasn't come up specifically, so they basically call it a safety zone, right? And you can choose to implement 20 mile per hour there. The only real talk of lowering it to that speed limit was at the village school that's come up on Randolph Ave, where we have a school drop-off area that it doesn't meet the warrants of a posted school zone, but maybe that's a place where we could look at that, potential concept.
I think if we go look at it broadly, too, just to see if there's any other areas in town that might need it, because that's the companion that came out of the East Milton Neighborhood Association when they brought the 25-mile-an-hour request to us. They also mentioned that, but we put forward just to town meeting just the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, and thought the safety zone one could take a later, be deferred for a little while and take that one second.
Okay.
So it would be great if the Traffic Commission could look at that, too, at some point, and get back to us.
Any other questions? Okay, we have a motion before us.
I'll move that we approve the following recommendations of the Traffic Commission. To post thickly settled speed limit 25 unless otherwise posted signs at jurisdictional boundaries of the town. To amend Article 8, Section 12, Walnut Street, to install a stop sign on Walnut Street at the intersection of Reedsdale Road. State Street, to install a stop sign on State Street at the intersection of Plymouth Avenue. And to amend Article 8, Section 24, regarding Harlan Street, to install a do not enter Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. sign on Harlan Street at the intersection of Unquity Road.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thanks, Chase.
All right, thank you.
You're doing a great job.
Have a good evening.
Thanks, Chase.
Yes, you've really, in a short period of time, you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Okay, now we're going to circle back to an approval of a livery license application.
Is that being deferred?
Oh, you know what? It looks like we're deferring that now because Mr. Wellington isn't able to attend. Okay. Number 7 on our agenda, we have an approval of a one-day liquor license to the Forbes House Museum.
Sure.
Approval, I can't even talk tonight, I'm on vacation. I'll make a motion to approve a one-day liquor license for the Forbes House Museum for its Scotch whiskey tasting to be held at 215 Adams Street on Thursday, March 1st, 2018, from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m.
Second.
Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 8 is an approval of capital project certificates.
This one relates to bonding. It's not actual bonding itself, but I'm going to be recused just out of an abundance of caution, and else come back.
Okay, so
I'll read the motion for you.
yeah, so this basically is this was approved at town meeting. It's $978,601 worth under Article 5 of the May 1st annual town meeting. And Michael, do you want to go through anything in particular?
No, this was given to us by the town treasurer. Basically, you're just voting to approve the maximal useful life of these items. Again, like you said, approved at town meeting in May.
Okay.
This past May.
So we have a motion before us.
So I'll make a motion to approve the maximum useful life of the departmental equipment listed below to be financed with the proceeds of $978,601. Portion of the borrowing authorized by the vote of the town meeting passed on Article 5 at the May 1st, 2017 annual town meeting is hereby determined pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, 9 to be as follows, and I'll break them down by department, the amount and the maximum useful life. This is for the cemetery department, a utility tractor and loader. The borrowing amount there is $55,000. The maximum life is 10 years. For the DPW, and this will be, the next 5 will all be for the DPW, a 3/4 ton utility truck, $40,000. Useful life is 10 years. The next is a dump truck at $199,000. Useful life is 10 years. The next one is a dump truck with a combination dump, sander, and plow at $178,000. Is that 2 of those? Am I correct? That's 2 of those? It's 2 of these at $178,000 total, with also a maximum life of 10 years. The fourth is a fixed base generator at $60,000 with a life of 10 years. And the fifth is to convert to sander plow, $75,000 with also a useful life of 10 years. The next is for the town. The town is for the town, a new genie lift. Is that for this building here? The town hall, a new genie lift at $27,000 with a maximum life of 10 years. For the police department, the beginning of radio replacement phase 1 at $130,601, and the useful life of those radios is 10 years. For the water department, a dump truck at $180,000 with a life of 10 years, life expectancy of 10 years. And finally, for the sewer, a trailable air compressor, $18,000, price of 10 years.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
None?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just do
Welcome back, Katie. Okay, so item number 9 now is approval of the Quincy Home Consortium Mutual Cooperation Agreement, which we, as a town of Milton, are in agreement upon with the town of Quincy, Holbrook, Braintree, and Weymouth, and it relates to housing and urban development. Bill Clark is our contact with the group, and we have a motion to continue to stay within that group.
Yeah, I'll move that we continue to participate in the Quincy Home Consortium Mutual Cooperation Agreement with Quincy, Holbrook, Braintree, and Weymouth through June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item number 10. We have a conference with the Airplane Noise Advisory Committee. We have Andy Schmidt and Sebastian Barbagallo. Barbagallo. I always mispronounce your name, and I apologize for that. One of these days, I'm going to get it.
Andy, Sebastian?
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having us back.
Thanks for coming in.
So we wanted to give you an update on the noise monitors that the town acquired. We've been in the process of learning how to work the devices, figure out what types of things they can tell us, and have started thinking about where we want to place them. So we wanted to have this a few minutes just to do a little bit of show and tell and give you a sense of what we're up to. So Sebastian, over to you.
Good evening. Let's pull up this. I'll pass this around in the meantime. This is one of the noise monitors that we bought. That is the wireless model.
Small.
It is small.
That is able to, along with that, is a solar panel.
So I take it you mount this, you wouldn't just lay this down, because a windy, like 30-mile-an-hour winds would...
Right. Well, you
Yeah, you'd mount,
actually,
yeah.
it's got a low center of gravity. You could leave it on your windowsill.
Outside or inside?
Outdoor. It's all-weather, weatherproof, up to -4 degrees Fahrenheit. I think up to over 100, the max temperature. So it's designed to be a long-term outdoor use noise monitor. So we've had this one and another one outdoors for sort of playing with them, put them through their paces for the last week or so. The output that you get from one of these, the data we've been getting is quite powerful. You put it through the software. This is a graphical depiction of the decibel levels at my home.
Do you want to put it on the screen?
I certainly can.
Yeah, I'd like to let people see at home
Absolutely.
in real time here.
provider. So this is a graphical depiction of the red line that you see is our decibels. If I zoom in on these here, and even further, you'll see that these are individual noise events that correlate with airplanes going overhead. The x-axis at the bottom is the time, so this is from 10:09 p.m. on the 22nd to roughly 11:38 on the same date, and you'll see a number of events here that are the y-axis here would be decibel levels, so there's ones here that exceed 80 decibels, which I think is a lot louder than we had anticipated that it would be. I live under the 4R flight path. I have some handouts here of the flight path as well as where so I live 1,200 feet from the flight path to the east of the flight path for 4R, and these are the readings that we're getting, so I would anticipate that directly underneath the flight path, we would get even higher readings when we get to testing at that point. Currently, the next step that I would like to pursue with this would be to move this further back from the flight path and see if we could develop a correlation between distance from the flight path laterally and decibel level. To the end, this is because Cindy Christensen, during one of her CAC committees, I'm not sure if it's the Logan or the Massport, is proposing that we use offsets to the RNAVs, which would stagger. I'm not sure if their proposal is every hour or every day you would shift the RNAV X amount of feet in order to provide relief to people directly under the RNAV. And with the goal of this exercise that we're going to undertake for the next, I would say, month or so, would be to say what is an acceptable level to shift it to provide a significant level of relief. And I have just with some preliminary numbers that I've gotten into, I don't think it's a very big shift that has to occur that would to provide relief to people underneath the RNAV. I think there's a certain corridor where you get slammed, and I think once you move outside of that, it's relatively light lifting. So that's what we're going to be working on next. What I passed out are some proposed locations where I've gotten some permissions from homeowners to place them in their yards for approximately 2 weeks.
And one of the things we want to do, or one of the things you're looking at, is how we compare these devices up with the solar panel mounted to a piece of wood or something similar, so that it can be much more portable, more modular, to make it easier to maintain.
Correct. So, in addition to this, I believe it is a recommendation of the ANAC committee to purchase 2 more.
Yep.
To leave at stationary locations underneath 4R at one more point, and again under the 27.
Yeah, the idea, yeah.
A constant live stream of data at all times, and a service that just got offered from the same company that manufactures these is a cloud-based data collection, so that anyone with a login credentials could go to the website and pull the live data from these devices at any time. You know, any of the selectmen, town council, or anyone that would request that data. So it's a pretty powerful. It prevents all the data being stored on one single laptop, and right. It's a sort of a fail-safe too for redundancy of data storing. So the cost for that, I believe, is $250 a year for up to the 5 devices, which I think would cover us for what we're recommending.
Yeah, I think so. And the idea behind going with some form of cloud storage and cloud access was to make it easier for not just us, but the homeowners who are being kind enough to let us use their yards. Mm-hmm. So as long as these devices have an internet connection, wireless internet connection, they can connect to the cloud and upload their data as often as is necessary. And then we can find a way to store that or save that. But but this way, it's a lot simpler than the possibility of needing to pair a laptop with every device or ask the homeowners to upload the information. So it's our opinion that this is a much more user-friendly approach and a much more consistent approach to how we want to access or collect and access this information.
What other communities doing this besides us? Anyone else doing this?
I know that there are some communities that are using these types of devices to
Right.
record, and they are uploading it for analysis. Whether or not they're using the same solution, I don't know. And in part because this is brand new. They just announced this as you've been talking to them.
The cloud services, yes, that's a brand new offering.
I think, the work that you guys are doing, we're looking to build a case here, and we're looking to collect good data that can help us in our battle, really, to try to find some sort of relief here. So what would the total cost be, again, for the cloud-based and...
So currently, we're invested approximately $1,200 for the two units that we have and the solar panel and some accessories. The funding additional funding that we're requesting is for 2 more units and 2 more solar panels and the cloud-based service, and I believe that would come to approximately $1,500 further.
Total. You got that written?
1,200 that we've already have invested.
And this information that you're receiving, you think that that's going to really provide...
I think it'll provide a lot of much more clarity. So, for example, one of the reasons why we wanted to get this up and running is, as everyone knows, they're at the end of March, beginning of April, for the last few years, we've had 110 hours of constant plane noise. So by having devices in place, we'll be able to measure what are the highs in terms of decibel level, what is the frequency of the flights, and also what's the true duration of the episode.
Yeah, and so, Sebastian, you're saying you're getting that at 80 decibels, and you're 1,200 feet away from where the actual plane's going overhead.
1,200 feet away, and I would say the average altitude is about 1,200 also.
Yeah.
At my location.
Where's the location? Where are you at?
Otis Street between Brook and Adams.
Well, that's high.
Right. So I think at my location, if you look at the handout I sent, there's not much further to go over Cary Ave area, and then they sort of hit the Neponset River. So this I think is one of the lower areas in Milton, I would guess.
And what are the readings that we're getting from Logan, where their monitor is?
As far as I know,
What are they claiming?
Well, the readings that we're getting are more on an annual basis. So I don't remember what the value is off the top of my head, but it's certainly far less than 80 to 85. Part of it's the challenges with the DNL measure in itself, being really a rolling average over the course of the year. There is the ability to calculate it daily. We want to be able to calculate it daily and even by event to demonstrate that DNL itself is an outdated measure, and that other measures like N70, which would be the number of times that you have a noise event that's over 70 decibels.
Yeah, because you're getting some of these. I mean, I reported one myself that was over Turner's Pond, and at 960 feet they came.
I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah.
I thought it was going to land in the bay in Savin Hill. I mean, it was that low, and it was incredibly high. And they say that they can obviously talk to the pilot and talk to the airline, but there's really no enforcement on that.
That's correct.
Yeah, and so we need to keep pushing this to prove that we're really being, we're getting an onslaught of noise, and it's really not, it's not fair, and it's unhealthy.
It is unhealthy, and what's been coming out from the reports, from the feedback from some of the other groups around the country, is that enforcement is almost non-existent. And there was, I can't remember the airport, is in the West Coast, but hadn't written a noise warning or noise ticket, for lack of a better term, in years. And so raising awareness, demonstrating that we are having these types of noise events, and pairing that with the research that does show that long-term exposure to noise is harmful. I'm hopeful that we can make the case for some sort of relief for us and for others that are getting this type of exposure.
I think so. I'm in favor of this, but I think we need to talk about this as a group and maybe onto our next meeting, get it on an agenda item to have a little discussion about your recommendation so that we may be able to approve something.
Fantastic.
I think, can you bring us just a written proposal and numbered? I mean, as long as I see some hard numbers in writing, what you need and what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then we can put it on the agenda and move on it.
Yeah, I think if we can get an invoice or something.
That's what I'd like to have happen. So if I could get that at our next meeting, I think that we could move on it that quickly.
I mean, you're well below the threshold of having to go like for an RFP or anything, so just give it to us as an actual written proposal.
Yeah, and I've been really impressed with how the devices perform. So being able to connect to them wirelessly, being able to use solar power. The devices do have a battery, but so the solar power, and Sebastian, correct me if I'm wrong, but the battery lasts for about a week, but you usually get enough sunlight that's not really an issue. So being able to have that continuous reporting, I think it's going to be really important for us. And also to have both permanent listening stations and some portable listening stations, I think are going to be important as well as we test out certain things and try and understand what are some of the challenges that other neighborhoods around town are facing. Under 4R, it's pretty clear, just because you can see the plane on a night like tonight lined up for miles. But other parts of town where the conformance is a little less frequent or a little less consistent, and you do see these planes wandering about, having an understanding of what their noise burden is, I think will be helpful as well.
Yeah, and I think if eventually we can identify some locations close to the 4L path, that will be helpful to test, as well as 27.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then be able to understand what life is like in the sandwich, I think is going to be really important.
Yes.
Yeah, the sandwich would be definitely a prime location to put a permanent listening device.
Yeah, I agree.
Agreed.
Well, we have Sebastian and Andy here. We recently, a few months ago, we approved membership in the NOISE organization. NOISE is the acronym for it.
Yes.
And I think we've kind of designated that invoices or official notices should come to the town administrator. But we've got a good group here on the ANAC who I think have the interest in taking part in some of the calls or some of the meetings. Now, some of them are in-person meetings. I don't know how many of our calls are in-person, and the in-person ones require some travel, which the town may not have the resources to cover that. It may be that someone might want to go to one on their own, or maybe we could look at covering it. But if there are conference calls or if there are other ways that we can be taking more advantage of that, I think we should see whether, since this idea came to us from the Airplane Advisory Committee, whether someone on the committee might want to explore what are some of the options, what are some of the benefits that membership gives us. We know it's a big lobbying group and it's an educational group, but are there programs that we can start taking part in or calls that we can take part in? And who might somebody from the Airplane Noise Advisory Committee might be the right person to be on those calls? Since they are working very enthusiastically on a lot of these issues for us.
Yes, they are.
Very hard.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. What I'll do is I'll make that an agenda item for our next meeting to take that up and figure out who we want to have run with that, and then we'll come back to you with who that will be.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Great. Everybody agrees?
That's an invoice.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
I'd always thought the planes flew right over my house.
Yeah.
Was this morning?
This was at 6, yes, this morning,
Okay.
6:43.
Right over your house.
Right over my house.
You'd be a prime candidate to have a noise monitor in your yard.
Let me
We can
check.
install
Let me
it for
check
you.
with the homestead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As you can see, they're not very,
Not very big.
not very big. They're not very.
They don't need a lot of,
Look at.
yeah, they don't need a lot of maintenance. They don't need a lot of, too funny.
They would stand a hockey puck.
Yeah, I was just
Several
about to
hockey
say.
pucks.
Well, Sebastian,
to
you
put it
in
high.
particular spent an awful lot of time on this, so thank you for
Yeah, thank you.
all of your
Appreciate it.
efforts on this part of the work.
Yeah, Sebastian did do all the research and has been the chief guinea pig in terms of getting use of the software and getting the devices working.
Yeah, and for people at home to understand the amount of work and time that you guys put in on this, all of the members and the advocates across town, it's really admirable, and we appreciate it as a board and as a town. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can we go to number 12 while they're still here so that they
Yep,
can...
while we have you in attendance. So we, the board drafted a letter to the Federal Aviation Administration. Actually, Katie, as our liaison, two airplane noise, if you want to kind of just touch on it a little bit before we make our motion.
Sure. It's a and the INEC members reviewed it and gave us some good comments on it. So thank you to Andy and the other members of the committee for giving the comments. This is really a follow-up to the November public meeting that was held in Boston regarding Block 2 of the ongoing RNF study. And essentially what we're doing is asking that there be more meaningful relief granted for the arrivals to 4RE and 4L. And we've identified 3 items. One is testing dispersion of the arrival paths. The second one is higher altitudes and steeper glide slope. And the third one is field observances, which we're asking them to do in addition to what they've already proposed, which is a curved approach over the water, which they've indicated may be of some limited application. But if we can get some additional items into the Block 2 of the study, that would be very helpful, not only to Milton, but also to Dorchester and South Boston, the other communities that are affected by the arrival paths. So that's the goal of the letter. And the professor from MIT at the November meeting invited some further public input into Block 2. There was no relief for Milton and our neighbors in Block 1 because that focused really on the departures. There was maybe a little bit if you in terms of 27 and 33 eventually, but it was really geared more towards the communities on the North Shore and the experiences that they're having. So hopefully the second phase of the study will produce some good results for our community and our neighbors.
Indeed, and I think the part about field observation is going to be vitally important because a number of the models that MIT has been using to calculate what the noise is going to be have certain assumptions, and being able to check those assumptions against field observation, I think, is going to be helpful, especially when you're looking at where they are in town, where are they actually following the path, is geared down or not, that goes into one of their models, and so on. So it's a great way to check your homework and make sure that your model's right.
Okay. Do we want to?
Yeah, we have a motion before us on our letter to the Federal Aviation Administration.
I'll move that we approve and sign a letter to the Federal Aviation Administration and Massport regarding Block 2 of the RNF study.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much for coming in. And
Thank you.
We'll get that on the next agenda.
Sounds great.
Appreciate
Thank you,
it.
everyone.
Thanks.
Okay, item number 13 is acceptance from the Milton Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition donation.
I'll make a motion to accept donations from the Milton Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition in the amount of $250 from the Massachusetts Convention Center Authority, of $2,000 from the First Congregational Church of Milton, and of $27,500 from the proceeds of the inaugural Mike's 5K to crush substance abuse.
Second.
Okay, I first of all can't thank these groups enough. Every one of them, no matter what the amount, is great. You know, it's this organization that we have is doing wonders for our community, for our kids, for our families. As we've talked about earlier, it's a national crisis. Nobody's immune to it. Milton, though, has stepped up to its leadership. Laurie Stillman, Carolyn Kinsella, our health director, and all of the volunteers and the many members of the Substance Abuse Coalition have done really good work. They've accumulated incredible data, and this is something that is going to help our town out for a very long time. So it's greatly appreciated, these organizations, for giving what they can give. I was fortunate enough to run in Mike's 5K and being friends with the Mulcahy's growing up, and it was a real tribute to a family, a great family, and the work that's being put in to help educate others. So, any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the next item on our agenda is ratification of the No Place for Hate proclamation. So each year the Board of Firms reaffirms its participation in the No Place for Hate program sponsored by the Anti-Defamation League by signing a proclamation to that effect. The chair traditionally reads the proclamation at the annual Martin Luther King celebration, which took place on January 15th at the Concord Baptist Church. This year, the request for the proclamation came in a little bit past the deadline for posting on the board's January 9th agenda, so therefore tonight we're going to propose a motion to ratify.
So I'll just make a motion to ratify the proclamation which was read on January 15th at the Concord Baptist Church, reaffirming this board's support of the No Place for Hate program sponsored by the ADL within the town of Milton.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, item number 15, we have a discussion on the FY 2019 budget.
Sure.
We have Town Accountant Amy Dexter with us. Good evening, Amy.
Hi, how are you?
Amy and her group have been working very hard. We had the Mass Municipal Association conference last Friday, Saturday. The governor announced good news preliminarily in his House 2 announcement. We got some further good news on Wednesday when the Cherry reports came out on the 24th. So very good story from a revenue perspective. A bit of the opposite from last year when I walked in the door here. So some very good stuff. We can walk through some of the specifics. Basically, the governor announced that the unrestricted local aid last year, which was a little bit over $3.2 million, he'd be adding 3.5% to that, which is about $112,000 more on the unrestricted local aid, which we thoroughly appreciate. The Chapter 70 announcement, although a bit ambiguous at the conference, was ratified and clarified during the Cherry reports we received, and that, coupled with the unrestricted local aid, gives us about 7.2% more than we got last year. Our local aid estimates last year, a little over $11.5 million, $11,685,134. That jumped to $12,536,216. Ultimately, it has to be approved by Senate and go through the proper channels, but preliminarily tells a pretty good picture for the town. We can walk through the work that was done to come up with some of the local receipts that we estimated. But overall, we met with the school department last Monday before the Cherry reports came out, and it was a bright picture, although unbalanced. At that time, the Cherry report estimates that have come out have actually proven to balance our accounts preliminarily. I hate to keep using the word preliminarily, but until we receive all of the funding sources from the state, that is what it is. To the point that we could have a surplus this year, which is a good problem to have. What to do with that money is up for discussion. Town accountant and I was talking about coming up with some type of stabilization. You know, it's almost found money this year for us. So put it away for a rainy day fund. A lot of the town budgets didn't ask for much.
Right.
School side, same thing. It's, you know, do you walk through the warrant committee and let me back up a little bit. The warrant committee subcommittee work is ongoing. Sat with our department heads today in a meeting. School department met this morning with the school committee, that subcommittee. Public safety met late last week. Library have met, cemeteries have met, so the subcommittee is doing their work on that end. We will present a similar presentation to the warrant committee Wednesday night. But should we go through this bit by bit, or do you have any questions with respect to?
We have it on the screen because it's not attached here to the, I know you emailed it to us.
Yeah, I emailed it to you.
I saw it in the email.
I didn't get a chance to print it out, but
I went through it on there. If there's anything in particular that you want to go through.
yeah, I think new growth we got from the assessor. It was pretty, what was it, $700,000, Amy? New growth?
745 about.
745, yeah. We'll talk about excise tax. I know last year the excise tax has been one of those numbers you can't really pin down.
Right, so, you know, there was a lot of discussion about that last year. When we looked at our estimates for local receipts, as you guys know, excise tax is the biggest piece. So if total local receipts is $9 million, our estimate is $4,070,000 for motor vehicle excise for FY19. That's based on the last 2 years' average. In the past, we've always tended to use 5 to 3 years, but the trend seems to be that it's holding steady. So the last several years, you know, it came in much above that. For example, in fiscal 17, I think the budget was somewhere around 3.5. I'm not sure if I have that right, but it came in at 4.2. So our number right now is $4,070,000. The average for the last 3 fiscal years is $4,007,000. Oh, actually, I used the 2 years. Is $4,069,000. But it's gone up from 3.5 in 14, 3.7 in 15, 3.9 in 16, 4.2 in 17. We had discussions with the town treasurer. We had discussions with the school business assistant superintendent for school business, just to make sure several set of eyes looked at all of these estimates to make sure they looked reasonable, and everybody was in agreement. Look around town. People, the town treasurer's feeling is he's seeing that they're leasing more vehicles. Therefore, when you lease, you're usually getting a new car every 3 years, so you don't hit that low bracket where somebody who's held their car for 10 years is only paying $60. You're basing it on not only that your car's new, it's valued more, but look around, a lot of people are driving really nice cars in town. So he felt strongly that this trend, we wouldn't see that dip that I've been fearful for the last several years, and we really haven't seen a dip since, oh boy, 2011 to 2012 was the last time we saw a dip. So we're 5 years from that point now, and it just keeps going up. So I think that's a reasonable estimate based upon the information we have. Other than that, the next biggest piece of that is the building permits. And again, that one we used based on FY17 actual rather than an average. Everything indicates that they're still building like crazy in town, as evidenced by the assessor's new growth number. So other than that, there's not a lot of room in there for growth. It's really those 2 items. So I think the total estimate that we're carrying in the budget right now is $9,045,000 for local receipts. And again, we've vetted it with several different people within town management, and that we're all in agreement that that's a very reasonable estimate from what we have available to us.
If we can get some of these projects through the pipeline as well, I know we're close on a couple of these larger projects. You can see that those permit fees increase. But we kept that, and town accountant kept that flat, which I agree with, to be conservative, just in case we see the motor vehicle excise tax not come in where we're anticipating to. So that cushion's kind of built in somewhere else in the local receipts, just to cover us.
The president said something about this the other day, about the number of people buying new cars, and how he doesn't see it, like, stopping. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, that is helpful. Anything else in particular, Michael, that...
No, probably we'll have more once the subcommittees start working through with the department heads. Of the people that we spoke to today, there were no real issues. Again, on the town side, I think we're asking for the chief procurement officer to go from 20 hours to 32 hours. That workload for Ms. Iniger is growing every day.
Right?
Yeah, but for the most part, it's everyone's doing the best with everything that they got with the override. Very appreciative of the state and local aid that came out, those announcements. So continuing to work with the state for grants and applications. And I know the IT team is looking to upgrade fire department, their technology piece. So we're continuing to try to continue other methods of coming up with funding sources, just in case one day we don't see the push. I know we spoke to Glenn Pavlicek, who was very thankful for that Chapter 70 money that came in, but he's been working through those formulas and seems to think that the town was right-sized with the number this year and could see that trend going forward. So always trying to be fiscally responsible and maybe put some money away for the rainy day funds if we could.
It's definitely a different position to be in, to have a surplus. I know at least going back 20 years, we have not had a surplus.
I was thinking the same thing, like, I think of the times I've been in this room, and it's like grim as grim could be, just
Yeah, when we had spoke Monday with Glenn and Mary, the unbalance was in the, $250,000 range, and Glenn had been here the longest, either sitting on the warrant committee or on the school department, and said that's very manageable. That's a good number. And then Cherry Report came out Wednesday and gave us even a better number to work with for now. So again, kudos to town accountant and her group, Glenn and his group for putting that together, the assessor, treasurer, everyone. It's a complete team effort, so.
Thank you, Amy.
Great. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming in.
That was easy.
On the department level budgets.
Sorry.
Well, this may not be an Amy issue, but at the Master Plan Implementation Committee, it kind of came to light that in this current year, we have $50,000 for the committee, but it's supposed to be, in order to spend the funds, you need a vote of this board, you need a vote of the planning board. Somehow for next year, the funding request was put into the planning board budget rather than a separate Master Plan Implementation budget. So we talked at the committee meeting with Bill Clark about that, and even if it's in the planning board budget, we think probably in the warrant it should be listed under boards and committees as Master Plan Implementation, and we'd still want the same controls on it so that it's not only the planning board, but also this board who would have to vote in order to spend it. So that's not a big budget picture, that's just department line item for that particular expenditure, but that was an issue that got flagged at our...
Who did that, the warrant committee do that?
No, I think when Bill Clark put the planning board budget together, he incorporated the master plan into it. So rather than doing a separate standalone budget for it, so
That's the first, he didn't mention that.
Should be a separate line item.
That's an easy fix.
yeah, that's an easy fix once we get to the preparation of the warrant.
Can I ask what the town has done in years gone by when there has been a surplus? What ideas were tossed about, or what?
I don't think we haven't
Doesn't
had
happen that
surpluses in
often.
the last 20 years. I mean, so I
Stabilization?
don't know whether, before that, I think probably unlikely, but
I'm thinking stabilization is what I
we've had some
remember.
pretty tough years with since Prop 2.5 came into effect in terms of always having to increase the 2.5% and not going under that. So,
We can have that at a later time.
yeah, I mean,
We could discuss that at a later time.
stabilization, reserves. You're recommending putting it at OPEB, which is
OPEB
a
So
reasonable
that's all, I'm okay with that.
approach. This should make the warrant committee's job a lot easier this year, which would be very unusual for them.
And they do have this spread.
Yeah, they have the same spreadsheet.
Which is actually a very good thing for a brand, the warrant committee has so many brand-new members, and a brand-new chair who's never been on the warrant committee, to have a year where it's just, you don't have to take out the knife at all. I mean, they're really lucky.
Yeah. And again, it's been very thorough with the subcommittee work, from what I understand, that they're asking very good questions and going through each of these budgets and line items and asking very specific questions about, what it is and why it is and where was it last year and why is it going up.
And I think you said the overage request on the town side is about 200,000.
Yeah.
The schools, it's larger, but they have a bigger enrollment this year than they had, next year than they had the current year.
Yeah, that was, and then there's, those other shared costs.
Between the school side and the town side? Right, school side and town side, right.
Some of, and debt service and stuff that we don't consider.
How is insurance looking, the group insurance?
It's about 75,000 over last year. That's mainly due to negotiated premium split changes, going from 72.28 to
7822.
78.22 to 76.24, offset by a premium increase. So the net overall increase is a little under 1%. So that's really good, but we anticipate those costs in 2020 to probably go up much more than that. That's the idea behind why right now in this draft we directed that overage to OPEB, because you're going to need, more than likely going to need somewhere to the tune of a few $100,000 for any insurance increases.
In 2020.
Yeah. It's unusual that it wouldn't go up significantly, but it's mainly because of the negotiated split change. So we just need to anticipate that, so we wanted to make sure that those operating funds were at least designated to something similar. I mean, it doesn't have to go there, but we know there's been a lot of talk about funding OPEB, so that was our idea, but again, open for discussion.
Didn't the auditor actually mention that to us as well when he came in here?
He did, yeah.
Did he mention that?
Yeah, and I actually had the town accountant run some stabilization fund balances, which I can share with the group. But yeah, that's the idea, is to pump that OPEB up. At the time, it was $750,000, $750,000. Money was added from the general fund to get it up near $1 million, but the idea is to build that as efficiently as you can.
I'm fine with that.
I am too.
So,
Good.
yeah.
Thank you, Amy.
Well, thank you, Amy.
More to come. Good story in chapter 1.
Yeah,
Right.
good story. Have a
Thank
great
you,
night,
Amy.
Amy.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, the next item of our agenda is a discussion on the logistics of the transition from a 3 to 5 member board. We all received a little information that Bill Ritchie had put before us, if you want to kind of fill us in.
Yeah, we kind of reached out to them. We was at the warrant committee last week talking about some general stuff going on in town, and one of the warrant committee members had sent me an email the following day wondering if there's a cost prohibitiveness to making this room more functionable for a 3 to 5. What the options, we talked about what the options might be. So simultaneously, Bill received an email for a quote that he got. It's about $2,200 to retrofit this room to make it a little more amenable for that group to sit here, that future group to sit here and comfortably work through an agenda. So that's out there. We know what it's going to cost to replace this table or make this room, and I'm not sure physically what it would take. I know there was some equipment involved with
I saw that as well on the, it was W.B. Mason quote, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And there was discussion previously about, regarding logistics about Milton High School studio. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that and whether or not this is the most suitable place, because this is where people generally meet.
If we can, I'd prefer to stay in this room.
I'm with you.
Okay. So, I think we're all under agreement that.
But do we have a drawing or a picture of what this table might look like?
Yeah, I can disseminate
Okay.
that. That's all he got. That's all I
If it would be just possible for them to just give us an idea conceptually how it would look, how it would fit in this room, and so we can kind of wrap our arms around it, that'd be helpful.
I still think it'd be worth it for you to bring like an architect in, not just a quick, give it a look. I'm amazed at what they were, the police station today is just, and when we were like Band-Aiding it, and an architect came in and just, I think it's worth it just for some short money. It might make your life a lot easier. All our lives just a lot easier. I saw Bill's final recommendation. I didn't about either going to the high school or the COA. I think the selectmen's meetings should be in this building. I agree with you, Katie.
Yeah, so I'll get you a
It
drawing.
would be good to see the
yeah,
picture of it, what that table would look
maybe
like.
an architect's rendition of what it would look like.
Great. Any other discussion on the transition 3 to 5?
We're going to find out sooner versus later.
I know we've talked about, committee structure, and obviously we'll probably want to have that conversation once we do have 5 members, but I think it would be good to find out, especially in the finance area, how the school committee, I know their finance subcommittee gets organized early in the late summer, early fall when they start their work, but I think that's probably one of the first committees we'd want to have. So, maybe a matter of talking to the school folks and just getting their ideas on that. The other thing is
I
communication.
was just about to mention that, the communication, how that process goes. I know that in talking to at the MMA, talking to other chairs of boards that have 5, generally information funnels through the chair, and with the town administrator. So
But the problem there is the chair can't talk to all, the chair can only talk to one other
only
member of
talk
the
to one
board.
other member, right? So it's basically, can you set up blackboards and can you set up different types of ways to receive information? And so those are the things that have to be figured out before this gets implemented.
I think a lot of it's going to have to be written communication rather than the phone, really, and that's a staffing issue for the office. And the Town Government Study Committee, is very focused on this CFO model, which I think we've all voiced support for, but right, we would potentially go to a system where we have an assistant town administrator who spends 100% of her time on human resources, and another assistant town administrator who spends 100% of the time on finance. And that still leaves the void that the assistant town administrator used to serve, which is really to assist the town administrator on projects. And we wouldn't have that unless another position got restructured. There could be some creative ways to do it. It doesn't have to have that title. But that's, that's an area where I think we really need to think this through, because it impacts the board, not only the data, it impacts the board as well.
It does.
And it will impact communication. And it could help communication if there's someone who can assist the town administrator with communication to 5 members.
Yeah, well, we've talked about communication being a key, not only internally and going from 3 to 5, but also externally as far as getting information out. So communication continues to be a real big kind of piece of the puzzle to what this town, which is a strong information town. People are very committed in wanting to know in real time what's happening. So I think that, the town administrator and I have talked about that. We don't have the money to hire a communications director or anything like that. But I think that we need to be thinking about how we can solve some of these problems to make it more beneficial, not only for our residents, which is first and foremost, but also internally, how we communicate with the town administrator when you go to a 5-man board.
Yeah, because I think communication's still a bit of a challenge for us now, even with 3, but it's going to get even worse with 5. So we're going to need either written communication, or we're going to need somebody else assisting the town administrator to help convey that.
And the other thing, and I like to say this, and this is just comes from just a personal opinion, I would hate to see that the town administrator's time is being gobbled up by phone call after phone call after phone call by members of the Board of Selectmen, when he's got a job to do out in the field, to be communicating with his employees and to help really fix situational issues throughout the day and to meet and to move things forward. Let's face it, we're in a climate where we're always trying to leverage and find public-private partnerships and things to enhance the existing landscape of how we operate as a town, to make things better and cheaper, and but also more effective. So I just want to caution to a future board of 5 to think about the impact that it could create on the town administrator too.
Well, that was a concern in going to 5 that a lot of us had, was the impact on the town administrator. It is a bigger workload for the town administrator. But the voters have made that decision, so now but it is still important. I mean, the board's got to have the information, so that's the trade-off, and that's why I think the finance and the HR model doesn't necessarily work unless you still address the piece that's missing, which, it could be another position, doesn't have to be an assistant town administrator, but there's definitely a void that the TA just doesn't have the resources that the former TAs used to have when they had an ATA who spent only half their time on HR and half the time working on the budget and working on
and I think,
other issues.
Michael's now been here, 15 months, and I know we're going to get to a discussion soon about town administrative performance review. I think maybe that's one of the things, Michael, that you're going to need to look long and hard at is your staff, your team as it exists. How can you maximize what you have, and do you need more, in terms of where this is going? And it may mean reallocating people to different types of positions, that are going to enhance the way the administration moves forward, in this new model,
Yeah. Selectwoman Conlon and myself met a gentleman on the Canton Board of Selectmen, where they have 5. Had a very brief conversation about how it works, and the one person I didn't bump into at the trade show was the town administrator in Canton. So I'd love to pick his brain and some of the other town administrators that have worked with a board of 5 to see what it takes, what works, what doesn't work. So I will be having a conversation with Town Administrator Aspinwall and some of the other members of neighboring communities that have 5 Board of Selectmen, because it can be time-consuming to make sure everything is disseminated individually, and it's something that has to be dealt with. But
correct.
yeah.
I agree. I echo what David said. I mean, I'm more inclined to listen to what you need, and if it's something like Katie describes, and that's fine, but you're the one doing the job, and I said to you the day I walked in here, if you need me, call me. If I need you, I'm going to call you, which I hope, and you do the job. I know it's all day. You're in here 24/7, and you've done a great job getting things out to us so far. I'm inclined to hear from you what you need here.
I go back to what Tom Hurley, sometimes you can get inundated with emails, right? And then some of them will go into his private account by accident, some of them will go to his public account, and he didn't know which one was which, and then he was getting duplications, and sometimes it might fall through the cracks, but, Emily might send it, and then I might send it again, and I apologize for the duplication, but it's better than you not knowing what something that might have come in from. But, we'll figure out. There's a balance there, and I appreciate it.
And a system, and I think that, as we talk to some of these towns that have created it, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. I think that taking best practices from some other towns, and I think let's kind of put a charge into it right now. We'll talk to the school committee, we'll talk to a couple other towns, and maybe over the next month, maybe not the next meeting, but the meeting after, we can have something to report back on, which could be helpful.
What are you thinking, Katie, for a finance subcommittee, as far as their role?
To be involved early in the process in the budget. I mean, I think the board has to drive the policy. Are we going to have an override this year? Are we not going to have an override this year? What are our budget priorities? And that has to get established early on in the process. And then the town management takes it from there. But the school, I think there are 2 or 3 school committee members on the school finance subcommittee, and they're kind of meeting every week or every other week,
every Monday,
right through the fall. Right. So that way they have really an in-depth knowledge of what the school budget is. And that's the part that's missing a little bit. The board used to be, before we went to the Strong Town Administrator, the board had a lot more hands-on with the budget, and now we don't have that, but we need the information. So we need to know what it is. We need to know what's in the different budgets. We don't have to be as involved putting it together, but we need to understand it and make sure that we can answer to the voters on it, that sort of thing. All right. That's what I think the Finance Committee would do.
Good. Okay, let's move on to next agenda item, and that's a discussion of the May 2018 annual town meeting articles. Would you like to go through these one by one, or is there anything in particular that you want to discuss?
So if I might add, the warrant committee is taking a look at these non-budget warrant articles over the next 2 weeks. They're going to bring in people to speak to them. Not sure what's on the agenda for. I didn't see the agenda today when I left the office, but what's on the agenda for this coming Wednesday. But I know like John O'Rourke from the Municipal Energy Aggregation is going to come speak to them on the 5th. And I know they have a plan to address the citizens' petitions. I think this board should be invited and will be invited to those to voice your opinion when the warrant committee hears them. But well, the chair, we spoke last week, and his idea is while the subcommittees are working through the budget articles, before they're presented, they can try to tackle some of these non-budget articles. So you might be hearing from them, Emily or myself, about possibly attending one of the upcoming warrant committee.
Good. So those meetings would be held in public, and we'll have an opportunity to attend and to be a part of that discussion.
I'm guessing the planning board ones, at least most of them, have to go through a public hearing process, and I don't know when they've scheduled it, if they have, but...
I haven't got confirmation as to when those ones are.
Yeah, I haven't heard.
Yeah.
The 2 that concern me are the citizens petition articles, in particular the yacht club article, and we touched on it briefly last week. The master plan committee had a brief discussion, because this would really represent, I think, an end run around what the master plan committee is trying to do. We had one member who was out, so we decided we wanted to have a follow-up at our next meeting. So we didn't take a position, but there was a lot of concern about it. And I think we might have briefly spoken about the other one, which Phil Johanning addressed at Citizens Speak. And the planning board, I think, has asked for clarification from town council on whether it would even be effective if there were a moratorium. I watched some of their meeting, and Alex raised the question of whether it would just be an opinion of town council, so that even if a moratorium were declared at the very next town meeting, there could still be a zoning article. So he was raising the question of effectiveness, but it's a concern that with all the projects that we've got coming, that there would be a moratorium, even with the qualification that, that Mr. Joe Henning said tonight, which was until there's a comprehensive zoning plan. We have a comprehensive zoning plan in town, which is the 1938 zoning, which has been amended over time. But, I mean, I would like the board to at least consider weighing in on the yacht club article.
So can I ask a question about this? On the yacht club article, or both those citizen petition articles, these citizens will get to go to the warrant committee and present?
Yes,
So to allow the warrant committee to make a recommendation one way or the other?
yes.
Do we know when that will be? We don't.
I thought February 5th
I
was...
think February 5th is,
one of the
yeah.
ones.
On both?
Yes, I believe he's trying to get them in the same night.
Can I ask you on the, only because you're the you're at all the MPIC meetings. What is the vision for the town-owned property with the yacht club? I mean, I've seen the vision, what they want to do down there,
So it has
and
to...
I can understand why they're doing it, because I think they think they're getting boxed out, which I think is going to be, if we try to do that, it's going to have some political bite to it if we try to do that.
No
But-
one's trying to box anybody out. I think that's been what the
Okay.
message that they've been putting out. But the Yacht Club has been at all of the master plan
Right.
implementation meetings. They've had a lot of opportunity to give us their opinion, to speak, to ask questions, and they've taken full advantage of that, as have other interested stakeholders in that area. But that lease expired in 2014, and we were told at the time, and it's not just this board, it was the park commissioners who were with us at that time, that it will have to go out for RFP. But we wanted to come up with a vision for the waterfront area, because it's been a long-stated objective of prior boards and others in town to try to increase public access at the waterfront.
I get that.
So about a year and a half ago, a lot of this was transferred to the Master Plan Implementation Committee because the Friends of the Crew came in asking for a dock location. So it's been a year and a half of discussions, and we eventually, at David's suggestion and April Lamroth's suggestion at a joint meeting, brought in MAPC to help us. And MAPC's been doing an awful lot of work, and they've put forward 4 scenarios.
I saw those.
The
I've
Yacht
seen
Club
those.
has told us they don't like any of those 4. Some of the other stakeholders like certain ones and don't like others. And I was going to mention it under members' reports, but on February 12th, when we have our next Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting, MAPC is expected to come back with a 5th scenario. So we've given them some additional direction further, and we'd like to see combining some concepts from the different options, what they might be able to come up with as a 5th option. So the work is continuing. The way this article is written, and I know Town Council just walked into the room, probably hasn't had a chance to look at this article yet, but we'd want his input into it. But right now, it's asking town meeting to direct the Board of Selectmen to lease the town landing to the Yacht Club. And we know it has to go out for bid, and there's an awful lot of work that's been done and is continuing to be done, and this really represents, I believe, an end run around the work of the MPIC.
Did they ever articulate this to you in any of the meetings?
Did they
were
plan
gonna-
to submit
they were gonna
this?
do Yeah.
No.
No.
No. We did have some discussion, and representatives of the Yacht Club were at our last meeting, so we had some discussion about it. But, we'll have to see where the warrant committee comes out. But it's something that the master plan committee is going to want to talk with the warrant committee about. And I think it would be good if this board wanted to give an opinion to the warrant committee as well.
Do the yacht club members, are they apprehensive to this board putting out an RFP for a lease? There's no other way it's going to get a lease if we don't do that, if we were to do it. There's no other way for it to happen.
Well, I think they've understood since the lease expired in 2014, and we made a decision to let them stay on month to month with the park commissioners, that it was going to have to go out for bid. But, at the same time, that's when Mike Roberts off at the Swift Hat Shop building, and a lot of and the crew wanted to do some things there. So a lot of things were coming together all at once, and then there was that long-stated objective to increase the public access. That's what transferred the whole project to the master plan implementation.
And the one thing, and full disclosure, I've said this too many times, I have a great affinity for that landing, for the water. I've been an avid boater, but that doesn't do anything. That would protect them in their lease, give them, but it doesn't do anything to upgrade the area at all. Even if we were to have them in tomorrow, they would have to admit by their own what you see there every day, that it's time, we can make it an awful lot better than what it is. It just, right now, it just exists. I mean, I know it's functional for them, but it's to really make that area of town what it could be, that can't stay the way it is.
It can't. They've been there since well before anyone, though, and out of respect for them.
I give them that, too. I agree.
It's part of our community and our history.
Right.
So with that being said, there's got to be a way where we can all work together, and I think that by their own self-admission, like you said, they know that the storage is an issue. And so how do we, as a group, work together with them to find a good solution? That's the key.
And I think we have been working together with them, and they have been represented at all of the meetings.
I know that.
And they've been taking part. They actually, at the last meeting, they brought forward a new idea for the boat storage, which was, I think pretty well received by the committee, and it would probably require less space at the landing. So that was an interesting development and a good idea. And I think the committee's view is we'd like the work to continue, and hope the town meeting would agree with
I think the storage is the big
that.
issue. I think modernizing and streamlining and maximizing that is just
There are barriers, though,
Absolutely.
obviously, with the lack of money that they have, and where is it going to come from and how we're going to do it. So there's a lot of open-ended questions here that need to be
And they may end up being the successful bidder on an RFP. But we have to go through that process.
good.
I'm sure they would bid. I think they're going to bid. They want to stay there. I think if there's an RFP meets what they want. And I think probably for all of us, especially the work that you're doing, to your credit, you're looking at this long-term versus putting a Band-Aid on something. And I think that's a great thing for down there. I really do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, moving on to item 18, which is a discussion related to the town administrator performance review. Right, so,
You know where I'm at.
we should, I think, put it on a future agenda to, I think each of us should be thinking of
Goals?
some goals and objectives that Michael, clearly we've gotten a lot done, which is very positive, but I think as a board we need to kind of look, in working with you to some of the things that we may need to enhance in town and some things that, our tax base desires and kind of find a way to get some strategic plan going.
Fine with that.
Future discussion on goals and objectives?
Yeah.
Would you want to wait for the 5-member board at that point, since we're fairly close, or would you want to have it before then?
So I think, in theory, it would be good to at least put some things out on the table since we're living and breathing it right now.
Okay.
For the 5-member board to take up at one of their first meetings.
Okay. That sounds reasonable.
I agree, especially just as soon as you asked that question and David said that, 10 months ago, I don't even know what I would have had for goals, walking in here. But I don't think you're even, as a new member, and even me coming from being a department head, I don't think I would have even attempted to take so I'm fine either way if we do it ourselves. But I would want to, I'm with you, Dave, either we do it ourselves or we have it all ready to go.
I think that the three of us should bring something to the table.
Right.
I think because right now we're living it, and I think that it can only help the new members that come on to give them some idea of what's happening, and then it could be adjusted as well. So.
And even goals and objectives for the board maybe could be the new 5-member board's focus.
Yes.
Once we get into the summer
Absolutely right.
for that fiscal year.
Good. Okay, item 19, boards and committees appointment.
Was that all we're going to cover, just goals and objectives, or do you want to talk about anything that we else want to say about the town administrator?
He's doing a great job.
Well, we did last meeting, we did agree to, I think we talked about this in a public meeting, we did agree to extend the town administrator another year and keep him at 3 years in his contract. To his request, he only wanted a 2% increase as opposed to the 2.5 that department heads got. He thought it was fiscally responsible upon himself. You know, we would have given him the 2.5 based on his performance and you know, the work that he's put through. You know, it's been, you know, incredible. You know, the amount of work in basic, I'll just go quickly on basic town services, the uptick on, you know, the level of phone calls and emails that I've received thanking us. So that's one area. The budget process, he's been able to adapt to that budget process and work with both the warrant committee and the schools and in every capacity to, along with Amy and the team and Glenn to really have a solid overview of what we need as a tax base and as a town. Yeah, we're thrilled. I can tell you that publicly. You know, it's a can-do attitude, not a can't-do attitude. Morale in the town is exceptionally high. We get thanks from regular employees who do a lot of the daily work that are sometimes underappreciated, but they're what make the town really tick, and department heads as well, who have shared their thanks, you know, because what we have is a supportive leader, one that would do the most mundane task himself to make sure that the job was done right. And, so it's a credit to him, but it's something that folks at home are going to have to get used to because it's going to get better because I think the more time you give Mike in this job, the more solutions he's going to find to make it easier for people to get better services. So that's where I sit on it. You know, I think that we'll come up with some goals and objectives, you know, over a couple of weeks, but I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, no, I agree largely with you on that. I was just going to mention, I think that, especially in operations, I think Mike has done a terrific job with that. And whether it's hiring the DPW director, that was a very good hire in Chase Berkeley. He's turned out to be really a very strong leader in that department. And that's a department where we needed some improvements. So I think that particular hire, as well as some of the other more recent hires, that some of those are newer. They haven't been here very long, but the CPO, I think, also seems to be working out very well. And our new code enforcement officer and so many of the others, but in particular, I wanted to highlight the DPW director. And also just to remind some of the residents in town that some of the things that I think Mike brought to Milton when you came in was a lot of your experiences in Boston, your connections in Boston and at the state that got you kind of early into the community compact and bringing that to Milton and the LED streetlight program and a lot of the improvements that have been made in this customer service, especially at DPW, which was maybe for all of us a high priority item to get that department really responding more quickly to complaints and to requests, and if somebody had a street that wasn't plowed adequately or you know, water main break, things that the DPW was responding more quickly to customer issues. I think we've seen a lot of improvement, especially in that area, and you had a lot of experience in that area, Mike, so it was great that you focused on that to start with, and I think you've really done well expanding into areas like planning and economic development, because that was a whole new area, really, for you coming out of Boston, where you had all that operational experience, and it's a whole new field to learn. So I think you've been learning that and have done a very good job with it. And there's so many different things when you come from city government to a town government. It takes a while to go through a whole cycle and see the budget and see how everything works. And so I think you've done a good job with that.
Thank you. Thanks.
A curveball? It's January 30th in 2016, 116 inches of snow.
Right.
Didn't even start to fall until February 3rd. I'm only kidding you. You know
I
how
was
I
sitting
feel.
in a small office at Frontage Road trying to figure out how we were going to remove stuff. The second storm wasn't even on the radar yet, you know, and neither was the Butler did it, right? We're anticipating a Patriots victory, but lots happened in 2 years. I personally want to thank this board, Tom Hurley, who was on this board. It's been a great year, it really has. People like Leroy Walker that helped me walk through that first. He was very instrumental in guiding me the right way through town government. People like April Lamoureux on the planning board, people that, a lot of the residents at home really don't know much about that are thoroughly committed to the town. The Cheryl Tagayases, I mean, I can go right down the list. We turned cable TV back on at my house. The kids thought it was to get sporting events on, but ultimately it was to be able to watch local access TV. And I watch a lot of it at home, and a lot of the people that you see on TV are the unsung heroes in the town on the boards and committees. And so obviously I have some great department heads and office staff and, people behind the curtain like Emily and Barbara and, Lisa Cool and all those people. I could go on and on and on. So inherited a very good team. Have tried to listen a lot more than speak. And hopefully the next couple of years, we continue to progress through the town and make this a great place to live, raise a family, and work. So,
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, we want to ensure that you have those resources that you need in the office, so to the extent that we can be helpful with that, I'm sure we'd all want to help.
No question. Okay, so we're going to move on to boards and committees appointment. We have a commission and disability appointment.
I'll make a motion to appoint, is that correct, Nathalie? Is her first name? Nathalie?
Natalie.
Oh, okay. Natalie Bellamere of 234 Lyman Road to the Commission on Disability to serve through July of 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Next order is board and committee appointment for Municipal Broadband Committee.
You want to do that one too? I'll do that one?
Sure.
So I'll make a motion to appoint Joseph Chamberlain of 131 Cop Street, Steve Paxier of 1027 Brush Hill Road, Mark Day of 70 Cliff Road, John E. Sullivan Jr. of 334 Elmwood Ave, James Fundling of 39 Sias Lane, Mark Patel of 33 Coolidge Road, and Jim Scroy, IT Director of 525 Canton Ave, to the Municipal Broadband Committee to serve through January of 2019.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Next appointment is Traffic Commission.
So this, go ahead. I'll go ahead, Katie.
All right, I'll move that we appoint Lee Toma of 58 Aberdeen Road to the Traffic Commission to serve through January 2019.
Second.
Any discussion?
We have the other two appointments that Chase mentioned earlier. How do you want to handle that? I know we've got some people who've applied. Do we want to encourage more applications? Give a little period of time to see whether anyone's interested in?
I think, as Chase mentioned that tonight, I think let's encourage more applications, and then I think we'll come to a decision over the next couple board meetings and put it on the agenda.
Okay.
I think just because of the type of work they do too, I think it would warrant us to hear from both Chase and Michael and who they think, we want to fill a void that, like Lee brought the bike stuff.
Yeah.
I think it's just such a complex, and it's a zero, having been there for so long, it's a $0 budget committee. I think someone who can fill a void, particularly even a need of something that is already being addressed there and expertise, I think that'll be good. I agree.
Good point. So I think that maybe we would take those applications and consult with them as well per their needs. I mean, you sat in that seat for many a moon, so.
Like Lee used to come, Lee came for years because he was, such an, and look what, bicycle, it just becomes such a major issue in every community, so.
I'm very thankful to have them. Okay, let's do that then. Okay, we already voted on that, correct? No, we didn't. All in favor? Aye. Sorry about that. So, okay, the next one is the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
So I'm on this, so you can read this.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So I'll move that we appoint Chase Berkeley,
So excited.
629 Randolph Avenue, Michael Dennehy, 525 Canton Avenue, Hillary Waite, 525 Canton Avenue, Caroline Kinsella, 525 Canton Avenue, which is Town Hall, Imge Serenoglu, I think is her last name,
Good work. Yeah.
2 Elliott Circle, Richard G. Wells Jr. of 31 Granite Place, and John E. Driscoll of 718 Randolph Avenue to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee to serve through January 2019.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Just one note on that, we're looking for one more resident. Carter Fahey was a resident on the previous committee. Tried to email, got bounced back, made a phone call, haven't heard back, but obviously great work done by that previous committee. If Mr. Fahey's listening and watching, have him call me at Town Hall. And then we're looking for one member from the Warrant Committee, and Chair Asher is working through that. So that'll get the 7 to 9.
Great. When's the contract up, Michael? It ends?
It ends June 30th of 2019. About a year and a half left.
Okay.
Next item is Town Administrator's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. A couple things tweeted out this week to highlight the MMA. We started the process as the school year started. There was an 8th grade essay contest that the Mass Municipal Association sponsored statewide, and a 3rd grade art contest. So I've disseminated some of these. I'm trying to use the pictures, the 3rd grade artwork, as you can walk them around on what local government means to them, and just the exceptional work that was done. I can't thank Superintendent Gormley and each of the principals. I think I mentioned that the day I spent with each of the 3rd grade groups was, it's pure energy and pure comedy. Some of those kids should be mic'd up, but the artwork is just fantastic, and we've used them in some of our tweets around town government about what government means to them. A lot of library, a lot of recycling, a lot of police and fire.
Great.
Yeah, great
Actually,
stuff.
it would be great to have these in a frame and post it up in
Yeah.
Town Hall downstairs or wherever. I mean, it's unbelievable. the
O'Keefe
work.
has been collecting them and getting to them to me, and I think a collage is something nice that we
Really,
could do.
really good work.
Yeah, it's excellent. It was a great process. And then at the Mass Municipal Association conference last week, we found out that Pierce Middle Schooler Matthew Paquette finished second in the state from hundreds and hundreds of submissions. So
Incredible.
quite an
Congratulations to Matthew.
yeah. Good luck with that. So, yeah, congratulations to him. Very, very proud. Great effort by the Milton Public School System. Superintendent Gormley opened the door, introduced me to the principals, and they let me right in, and it was very well received by the Milton Public School System. So, that's great. A couple of other small items. Gov Q&A, which is the new public records compliance software, went into effect on January 8th. Town clerk, IT department, spent a lot of time training people. There's about 70 users townwide between the town and schools. Went live on January 8th. Some requests, public records requests have come in. It's a great piece of software. It tracks everything. It assigns tasks to people. You see the clock ticking. There is a clock in place now, so it gives the constituency and anyone looking for freedom of information or public records a base for the town to make sure that we're following proper regulatory procedures. So that went live. Milton Complete Streets Prioritization Plan. They're having a public meeting tomorrow night at the library from 7 to 8:30. Assistant Town Planner Lauren Mazier came to talk about it. Basically, that was that Wikimaps.
Right.
Has to collect some data today. There were 509 different comments from 137 different users. Howard Stein Hudson, who's managing this for us, has done it for other municipalities, and they've never seen engagement like that. So.
Not surprised.
Again, we've got a very engaged and technically savvy community who is looking for infrastructure change. So that meeting's going to be tomorrow night, and they'll kind of talk about what they've received and some redundancies and commonalities and some of the overall problems that were expressed or concerns. Trying to get on the February Parks Commissioner's agenda to explore options possibly for Ash Street, put a solar farm up there. It's preliminary. I just want to follow up with them and see what's going on with that parcel of land, if it's something that we could look into. I drive around to other neighboring communities, and most communities have a solar farm. They have the Canton's got one right near the new ice house rink. When you come out of North Street there, that's their solar farm. And people have, quite honestly, started reaching out to the town and asking us what we're doing. It might be time for an RFI or something like that to see what the appetite is, and maybe give people access to some of these parcels that we own or other commissions in the town own, and start taking a look at that. So I'm trying to get on the February agenda for the Parks Commissioners for that. think that's about it. We had Maya, who's our risk management insurance company, come in today with the department heads. We do an annual meeting to go over risk management and make sure that some of the things we do in town don't expose the town to any added liability.
There's still Jeff Santa? Or did he
Oh,
retire?
there's two new gentlemen today, Todd Ohesian and Edward, sure, I forget Edward's last name, but what they're going to do is they're going to follow back up with the Bill Richies and the Chase Berkeleys of the world and make sure that we're, some of the things Bill does on a daily basis, Maya doesn't know about, and what happens is if we can communicate that stuff to Maya, there's discounts and what they call a rewards package, and we get a discount on our premium. So they're going to sit down and work through that, and then there's obviously training sessions that come through that Maya sponsors where we get credits for and deductions from our premium. One of them is, I believe it's May 3rd, they're coming out to do a sexual harassment training to all the department heads.
That's good.
And then I know under your watch, Chief, Jack Richmond did a shooter
He
training.
gets a grant, he gets
Yeah.
a $5,000 grant.
Yeah, so with all the new different people in the building, I think we're going to, Chief King's going to take a look at that again, see if Jack would come
Jack
up.
can write it, yeah.
Yeah, so
Excellent.
that's about it from our side.
Okay,
Yeah.
Chairman's report. So you touched on the Mass Municipal Association conference that we all attended last Friday. I had some really good conversations personally with a lot of electeds in different towns and cities, and also town administrators to talk about best practices and some of the issues that they are dealing with that are similar to the ones that we're dealing with. I was able to attend an opioid discussion, which was great, and able to talk a little bit about what our great organization, the Substance Abuse Coalition, is doing in town, and it's really good to see so many people getting together for really to share information. And so I know personally I had a really good time doing that. I think it's quite a resource for us to be able to go there and make connections and be able to pick up the phone and talk to people when we have something that's very similar. Also, just a reminder for those that don't know, tomorrow night is quote-unquote baseball night in Milton at Florian Hall at 6 o'clock, where Rich Hill is going to be the featured speaker of the Los Angeles Dodgers from Milton. Former Boston Red Sox player as well, and also Craig Breslow. And the proceeds for the event are going to go to the Milton Babe Ruth and the Strike 3 Foundation. So I'm going to give out these phone numbers as they've been publicly posted because there could be tickets still available. I don't know for sure, but Henry Rich is one of the contacts. He can be reached at 617-347-2998, and then Mike Whitaker at 617-910-6235. So this is, 6263. So Mike Whitaker, 617-910-6263. And this is a great opportunity for whether it's kids who are in a program or whether you're adults or seniors to get out and talk to two major leaguers that it's going to be benefiting Milton Baseball and the Babe Ruth organization, the Strike 3 Foundation, $25 a ticket. I'm looking forward to it. Being an old-time baseball guy that doesn't have much left in the tank, but just to be there and to try to help out. So just wanted to put that out there. But also, I wanted to also mention that there's going to be a flu clinic here at Town Hall and benefiting a girl in town, a young girl. I don't have
A blood drive.
A blood drive. I'm sorry, did I say flu clinic? A blood drive.
There are flu shots available.
There are flu shots available. Okay, but a blood drive. Pardon me. Yeah, it's a Monday and it's been a long one. So, so Richard, I know where you're coming from when you couldn't talk earlier. I'm getting there now. But yeah, there is a blood drive, and that blood drive is on Thursday, February 22nd, from 1 o'clock to 6 o'clock here in Milton Town Hall. Positive ID will be required, and this blood drive is to honor Hannah Serpa, okay? And let's hope that as many people can come out and give blood to help this girl that's near and dear to our heart here in Milton. That's all I have.
The only thing I was going to mention is just the MPIC meeting on February 12th. So I understand that the planning board has been invited to that, not as it really is a joint meeting. It's going to be in this room, so there probably isn't room to get everybody around the table. But if either of you are interested in hearing MAPC's fifth option for the waterfront, and they're going to give another report on the survey results that was online through the town website. They did update that a little bit briefly at our last meeting, but they'll go over that again and talk about the latest on the zoning, the draft zoning for Milton Village that will eventually go to the planning board. So February 12th at 7 o'clock in this room.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm good. I've been away. I shouldn't have anything to talk about.
Hopefully well
I'm in the
rested.
room. Still think I'm on a boat. Let's go back and forth. It's finally, I'm good.
Citizen speaker response?
I don't have anything. I think we covered it when we
I think we did too as well.
discussed the articles.
Future agenda items.
Can we put back on the social media policy for employees? I went to the MMA session on the social media policies, and the boards and committees are a little more complicated, but the draft that we had for the employees, I think if we back out because we'd probably have to do a separate one for boards and committees, so if we back out the elected and appointed boards from that and just target it at the employees, that seemed to be a pretty good draft that we had. We might just need to take those references out, and hopefully maybe one of the February or March agendas, we could try to get that on.
Yeah, and I think the car policy as well,
Yes.
at the same time. I think let's tackle both of them at the same time. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to move that we move into, to enter executive session to discuss strategy with respect to the purchase, exchange, taking, lease, value of real property, 0 Central Ave, considering the conveyance property and adjoining parcel, believing that having such discussions in an open session may have a detrimental effect on negotiating position of the board, and to return to open session to adjourn. Mr. Wells?
Yes.
Ms. Conlon?
Yes.
Mr. Burns, yes. We're now in executive session.